Okay, I'm excited to walk you guys through the Pilgrim Hat shelf sitter. And I'm going to start off by just showing you how the thing fits together in case that's all you need. So this is the brim of the hat. And after you paint everything and it completely dries, then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to slide this on. And it will go level here. And then you will put your sides on. Now, yours probably won't have these notches. I wasn't thinking when I designed it, so I'll fix that before I sell the file or make the kits. But then you'll put these on like that, right? And then there's the band. And then the buckle will go like that. And then you'll do the same on the other side. Now, this is meant to be two-sided. If you know for sure that you're gonna only show one side of it, you could add an extra layer here. You won't be able to do both of them. It won't fit, but you could add an extra layer there, and it will be thick enough on the bottom to stand. And then you could do everything one-sided, okay? So that's an option for assembling. But let's get to painting. Now, in the centerpiece, the only thing you need to do are the twigs. And I kind of like it a little bit dark on the back here. You got to paint fronts and backs of a lot of things. Got to get some, I didn't prep my stain. So I'm going to be using, this is cardboard, which really isn't going to do a lot to these branches. I kind of want them to be a little bit natural. As usual, I have watered this down quite a bit. I don't recommend going with straight stain. You can. It has a tendency to look thick. If you want a darker tone than what you get with a watered down look, I suggest multiple thin layers as opposed to trying to do it all in one layer. And you're going to cover a lot of this up with leaves and berries and things. So I'm not going to try to be perfect. I'm just going to get a good coat. I'm going to set this aside because I've got to do the back. I'll let that dry for a second. And then I'm going to do these two outer layers. You don't have to paint these inside layers at all. I'm going to be doing a very fall themed color palette, but I chose Row House to try to create a little bit of a more traditional Pilgrim hat look that's black. You could do a brown. I think I was actually going to go with a brown, but I think for my sample, I always find it's really good to be a little bit more traditional. But Row House has a very strong brown undertone. I would call it a gray more than a black, but very brown undertoned, which I think will work really good with a fall palette. It won't be so stark that it stands out inappropriately. This is very watered down. I'm going to see how it looks watered down. I'm going to let it dry. That's another tip. If you really want it to go dark on the second coat, let the first one dry. I'm going to let it dry and see if I want a second coat. And remember, there's a band that goes across the top there, so you don't really have to be perfect. And you can see for big pieces like this, I'm just slapping it on. And then I go back and clean up my strokes. These aren't large pieces, but on larger pieces, you want to be faster with your application because the second the stain touches the wood, it starts to soak in. Okay, I think that looks good. I'm going to leave that. Let that also dry. And then I will do the brim of the hat. Same color. And this will be like the pedestal for all the decorations. I love when I do a design like this that is in my head and is a little more 3D like this, but I haven't done it yet. I haven't seen exactly if it's gonna work out. I've gotten a little more confident to do the video on the first one. I used to end up making two because I would make it first, test it, and then realize, wait a minute, I should make a video. Okay, again, I went very light on this. I'm gonna let it sit. This is another area you probably won't see a lot of because there'll be so many decorations. Okay, I'm gonna start with the turkey. So for the turkey, I think I'm gonna go a little bit traditional. I've got a dark brown, and I did the shape of one of their feathers is pretty square looking. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go with, let me see how this looks. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this. There's a vintage Terra that is the stain color. It's very, well, it looks like terracotta. That's why I got it. Oh, I need a bigger brush. Use a brush the size of your piece, don't. Now, I'm going to be doing mine two-sided. So you have this second layer of petals. If you want, you could do each petal individually. Different colors, you could make it bright. I gave you that option. But because the back has no design, I gave you this to create that extra pop of color for you. That's why you have that. Plus it'll look like something from behind, as opposed to just a flat piece. I'm going to be putting mine on my kitchen table on another design that I will be putting out on it's a tray, so you'll see that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this body in a darker tone. Again, I'm just watering down the stain. When you've got a brown and you're going over an engraved thing like the eyes, it is so convenient because you have to do nothing. Just go right over it. Yeah, I like that. I think what I am gonna do though is I'm gonna grab a little mustard, which is a yellow. And I'm gonna create a little dimension. So this is very wet, if you notice. but very light. Then I'm going to go back and keep it a little bit darker on the tips and not really brush it out too much. I'm letting the water from the yellow and the water from this blend together. Love that. Yes. Gonna do the same thing again. Yellow is a very good highlight color if it's in the right palette. You can do this with white, but white has a tendency to be too much. This yellow is like part of the same tone, right? So it just gives you, it's like highlighting your face. Just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. And remember, it's going to keep soaking in. And I'm going to come back and just touching the ends with a very wet Vintage Terra on my brush. And this is Vintage Terra is the same color I put on the first time, but see, I'm not blending it down. I'm letting it be heavy. But it's going to soak in. See, it's already soaked in here. But it's giving me a good blend with the zero work. That is my kind of painting. Now, you're not going to see the back of the turkey, so I'm not going to paint that. And while I've got my mustard out, I'm going to do his little beak. You can brush, but sometimes I just tap. And I will do this in like a spice color, I think. His my migraine medicine's kicking in. I can't think of this word, but I will come back to that once this is dry, so it doesn't bleed. Because this is what happens when it's not dry. It bleeds. Okay, so this will start looking more like that soon. Let those dry. And I'm going to work on some plaid in between doing some of the fruits and vegetables. So I'll stick with my thin. And I think I've got a little bit of Casablanca out, which is like a cream. I always start with my light tones. I think I'll do the top line so that it will kind of stand out a little bit under the brim. My stain is very watered down. It's going to go into the grooves. And it won't be as bright as maybe it would be if I wasn't doing this so watered down. Sometimes with the white you have to do a second coat, but I think I probably won't. I think I like it not so bright. Okay. It's still wet, so that's not going to give me a second coat, but it will give me just a touch more color. Okay. You can hardly see it on this wood, but you will once you add the other colors. Now I'm going to do a couple of vertical stripes with this. It might be a little too wet. That's okay. Not sure what that. And, you know, just choose any placement of color that you like. I won't be the same on these. I'll choose different ones so you can see. I just say don't put them side by side. And then you're going to want to let that dry. Okay, we've got a pumpkin. This is meant to be like a butternut squash. Don't mock me if it doesn't look like that. This is a pear, and we've got corn. So I do have my yellow out, but I want a little bit of green for the pear. I need an orange for the pumpkins. And I have my brown out. And I think green right on the outside of these. You can do Indian corn and do lots of colors. Is that what it's called? Multicolor corn? It's not, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is your yellow squash, butternut squash, whatever. You could do a bigger brush than I'm using, for sure. Mustard is a really good color because it will let the burn come through and you get natural shadows without a lot of work. If I end up getting a ton of stain on my brush, I never go right into one of the grooves. I start off of that and then I can go over them and it'll be fine. I find white or like things that look like they have white in them are really the only ones you got to be a little more careful with. The other colors are usually pretty forgiving. Okay, let's do a pear. I'm doing this a little extra wet on purpose. And then I'm going to take my a really wet brush and grabbing just a dot of the green. I got maybe too much, so I'll just rinse my brush. It's just clean water now. And we'll use that clean water and just mix it on the right side, or the left side there. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Oh. It's okay, and then I'll just let the water do the work. And just leave that. It's very wet, but if I leave it flat, it'll do its thing. Oh, let's see. Well, I'm kind of still in the yellow-green land. A little bit more mustard stain. That's better. This looks really bright, but, and it kind of is, but you'll notice that it'll settle. especially since I'm watering it down a bunch. The tone of the wood will come through. I feel like the yellow needs a little more yellow. I don't know what's happening here, but it's not. Okay. I'm going to go on and just get a good full coat on of wet orange. Use any orange you like. Super wet. I'm going to do the same kind of technique I did earlier by adding some yellow. See how I'm kind of adding it in the same level all the way across? And I let it sit for a second because it's really wet and it's soaking into the wood. It's doing its little stain magic. I could leave that just like that and I think it would be fine. Which I might, but I think I'm gonna, this is just a clean brush with wet, clean water. I'm just dabbing it so it blends a little bit better at the top. And we'll let that do its thing for a second. Well, let's do it again. And again, just a little bit of mustard and a wet brush and letting it do its thing. I like the mottled look on this one, so I'm gonna leave that. I'm not gonna do anything and let you see what happens with that. This one has blended out a bit to the bottom. So I'm gonna get some very wet orange. See how wet that is? I'm gonna bring it up from the bottom so we keep this color on here. And then I'm just gonna let it do its natural blending, but at least we picked up some more color on the bottom. And it's bled up onto the top a little bit. I'm not too worried because I'm gonna do a brown stem, so I can fix that. Okay, let's add another color here. So these are dry. I'm gonna go to the next lightest color, which will be the yellow. Well, I just got brown in my yellow. Don't do that. There we go. And I'm gonna go, so this is, I've got a couple plaid techniques, or videos, but if you're gonna go right over the white and you'll see it will naturally create a plaid look. See how it's brighter right there? So the yellow will be darker where it's no white and lighter where there is. And that's it. And you can do a couple of layers if you want it darker. I'm gonna leave these light, I think. My dog is fussing. Toby, no. And then I'm gonna do some verticals here. I'm not really sure how many colors I'm going to do, so I'm going to leave myself a little room to do a couple. Now, if you let the yellows dry before you went horizontal to vertical, the crossover would even be darker, which is more traditional plaid. I don't have the patience for that, so that's up to you. But we're gonna let that dry. And we're gonna play with some blending on some leaves. I think that's it, right? Okay, I'm gonna do some yellows and greens and oranges. I'm gonna get that size brush. Just gonna pick one. Now these have a lot of score marks in them, so you can get it wet, but don't go too crazy because the water will get under the score marks and start to lift the plywood a bit. So don't go too crazy. I'm gonna start with doing a yellow one that has a little bit of green. Well, that's going to be a lot of water. I'd stay away from that much if you can, but we'll test it, see how it goes. I want it to have like splashes of color in there. All right, now we're gonna do, again, I'm gonna go yellow. Yellow's a good base, but I'm gonna grab some orange. Maybe just a little bit. And on this one, I'm gonna do orange as the base. You can go darker. I'm obviously watering these down, and then that affects how dark it is. I did not water that down much, but that's okay. This was vintage Terra. It's a little terracotta look. And I can get a little bit of mustard and mix that on top there where it didn't quite look too blended. Well, that just took all my color out, didn't it? Let's see, let's fix that. Okay. Now I've got a couple other colors over here. Let's see, I've got a vintage orange that I can play with. And amber is always really good. So let's see. Let's do amber. Amber is a good base. And then I'll go back to the vintage Terra with this one. Ooh. Could have used a little more water. Or maybe a little less color. But that looks good. I'm gonna do amber. And I know this sounds weird, but I think I'm gonna try it with a little green. Yeah. Just a touch. Don't go crazy, it'll make it really browny, brown looking. see, gonna do mustard. Oh, that was a little heavy, but that's okay. With amber. And if you notice, they're just kind of doing their own thing when they dry. But I think they're going to look really pretty across the top with different colors. Let's see, this is vintage orange. Do that with a little bit of the vintage Terra. That was not wet enough there. And then I do amber again. Toby, sorry, that's my dog. I have to take a break after these. This is the vintage Terra with the amber. I might have done that already and probably on the same exact leaf, but that's all right. And I think I'm gonna do one with a base of green. I want a little bit, just a little bit more pop of green that I can put on there. And I'll do a little mustard. It'll be just a really subtle. No, I'm gonna add a little amber on there too. Just on the edge. And then I've got these two solid ones. And remember, you've got to paint the backs of these and they'll be solid, but you can do the same technique. And when I apply them, I'm gonna have the lines be front and back so that both sides look like they've got some of this kind of leaf. Okay, so. And then just a little bit of amber on the edge. Okay. I'll take a little break and I'll be right back. You won't notice the difference, but I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And they're gonna go outside, so we'll see what happens. But this happened while I was gone. See how it's created a strong line right there? Well, that's what they wanted, to go out and scream at him. I'm gonna have to stop that. I'm gonna blur that up just by doing that. Okay. So these will dry. These have a lot of water on them. They'll take some time. And then we'll let these dry a little bit more before we flip them over. I know, I hear you. Go lay down. All right, let's add another layer to the plaid. I'm gonna add, let's see, I think I'm gonna add the amber. And I think I'll do that here. If you're really uncomfortable with straight lines like this, just do small strokes. It's fine. They'll blend. I'm just barely touching it, kind of watching where my brush goes. And again, you can do these colors much darker than I'm doing. I've got a lot of extra on here, so I'm going to come over here first before I go back, so I don't put too much in that tiny little space. Let's see. Sometimes with the, when you do like the cream like I did in the beginning, it's hard to tell where that was. I have been known to paint over a color before. So this orange right there is bleeding a little bit. That's okay. All right, let those dry. Let's see, I've got tons of berries and different things, but I think what I am gonna do is do the backs of the turkeys. Now, if you don't like the burn marks and stuff, just do real quick sanding. Sorry for the shake. That's better. Sometimes they're worse than others. I can't really control that other than masking, and I don't want to mask because that can risk the stain process. Okay, go with the bigger. And I'm gonna go with, again, same vintage Terra back here. Now this is gonna go here, so I don't need to paint the back of that now that I think about that. I just need to do this part. And I probably want to make it so it stands out. So I think I'm going to go get a little more stain without water. See how it makes it darker? There we go. Okay. And I don't need to do that, so I'll let that sit. These are meant to do like this, so you don't have to paint the backs, but you could if you wanted to and have two separate pieces. I'm going to put them together on mine, so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to get some brown and do the stems. It's a little much water. Notice that I try to remove a little bit more of it before I get too close to a score mark. And now I'm just going to touch it. I'm not going to try to brush too hard. Got a little bit of bleeding here, but that doesn't really matter when you use a darker color over top. Same here. It's probably because I was just moving them around too much. All right, and then the pears. I think I'm going to do the pear stems in green. Not that I have any idea if that's right or not, because I don't eat pears, but I figured that would give it something different. I was just looking at this, and it looks like, I know there's color here, but it's almost like it's totally gone. Before this dries totally, I'm going to hit it with a little bit more yellow and be a little bit more deliberate. Or try to be. There we go. And I'll just go over the whole thing because this green will still show through the yellow. It'll be better. Okay. I do have 2 turkey feet that I haven't decided 100% if I'm using, but let's paint them nonetheless, just in case. Oh, that was a big dip in the stain. Let me be careful. Okay, and now we've got 2 buckles. I think I'm trying to think of what I can use that will stand out against. I think I'm going to do the vintage Tara, the purposefully dark against the plaid. I know it's not like yellow like you might think, but I've got yellow in my plaid, so yeah. And like some pieces like this, if you hate what you did, you could turn it over if they have this kind of easy shape. Not that everything is easy to reverse, but some things are. All right, now I'm going to use that same color, I think is the final color in here. But go a little lighter. At this point, by the time you get to the last color, it's really hard to tell where you need color. And so I just kind of make it up. I don't really know if that was another color or not. Good enough. And I feel like I think I have to do, I think this is this one. Okay, that's going to be good enough. And we're going to let that go. Let those dry. And then we've got, oh, I left out a leaf. I'll get that in a minute. I've got a bunch of berries. And I don't think I'm going to do them all. You're going to get a ton. I'm not going to paint them all right here, right now. I'm just going to do a few. And I'm going to add cherry blossom into the mix, I think, with these. A little touch of purple. Feels like a fall color. Oh, okay. You can't see me, but I'm having a disaster, but that's okay. All right. So I think I'm gonna do these green, and then I think I'm gonna do these. So this is cherry blossom, very watered down. It can go dark, but it can really have a brown undertone feel, which I think works nicely with fall colors. As long as you let the wood shine through, it works. So like, see, the colors look really good together, I think. And I think it'll just have a nice little pop of color throughout the piece. Nothing too fancy. Light darks, lights and darks. Oops. I dropped a thing of the cherry blossom in there. So I'm going to just get some water. And I don't hate that at all. That's kind of pretty. I would say use a little purple on your leaves. Pretty. Okay, and then I think last I'm going to add, where's my, yeah. I get a little bit of the spice. Spice sound is just what it sounds like. It's kind of a red, spicy red. And again, stay super light. But this will give me a chance to add another tone throughout. Oh, hello, dark. By sticking some little berries on there. Okay. Oh, and I want to use this on the turkey's face thing. That word is still escaping me. This is the closest thing I have to red in my palette. And I'm just gonna tap. And I'm going with medium wetness. Don't go super wet. This is a very small space to stain. If you go too wet, it'll bleed right over onto your beak. Cute. Okay. I think I'll leave these stems. Just like that. Now let's feel dry. I'm not gonna sand. I'm not gonna worry about these too much. And I might get a little bit creative and use some of the spice and the cherry blossom that I just grabbed though. See how clear water just kind of blends everything nicely. Let's see, the cherry blossom, if I put that down, I know leaves aren't this color. I get it. But if I do that and then come back with some heavy spice and just leave a little pop of purple, I think we can get away with that. This is the spice. And I'm going to come in with Vintage Terra. And a little water. I'm not really paying attention to what's on the other side either. I don't know that that matters. A little mustard. And a little spice with the mustard. This is that one that I missed. This is Vintage Orange. With a little amber and maybe a touch of Terra at the bottom. A little more subtle look. It's got a lot of color, so I'm going to actually do a little brown just to go ahead and lean into that extra burn that's on this one. and then come into the bottom with some spice. Same with this one. I think it depends on where it was on the sheet. Because I think that gives us a little extra color. And then on this one, I'll do Vintage Terra with the brown. All right, a couple more. Yeah, these are a little extra. So let me go Vintage Terra. A little spice. This is amber. I think I'm gonna do, that's Cherry Blossom. I just did a little brush right along the edge. And this is Vintage Orange. And then let's do a little brush of the brown. And then maybe just a, well, there was going to be a hint of the spice, but now there's a lot of spice. I'm going to come back with a little Vintage Orange right down the middle, just to make sure I don't lose that color. Okay. There's a lot of things that need to dry. I'm going to grab, this is the main piece. Let's just get some color on these. It's really just a backdrop. I could have left them plain, but I think you can see that it just tones down that color just a little bit. This color is a custom color. It mimics the Sherwin-Williams color cardboard. I've used it a ton since I got it. I really like it. Okay. See how nice? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to let all of this dry. Some of this is still very, very wet. And then I will come back and we will assemble together. Okay, it's time to put this together. So, okay, so now it's time to assemble. Trying to get a good angle here. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. So, you know, the only thing I didn't do is paint the bottom of this. I'll go back and do that after. The first thing you're gonna do is put your brim on. And I did a little bit of pre-gluing. So the first thing I did was I put these two pieces together and these two pieces together. Now, again, yours probably won't have this notch on it. And so what we'll do is we will get our pot of glue, and then we're gonna glue those on the piece. And the reason for the cutout truly is just to save wood. There's really no point in having a solid piece on the inside. So you're gonna glue that on. And make sure that it sits flat. Yep, and see, that will go on top, just like that. that should give it plenty of stability to stand. Just making sure that it's flat. You could have put glue up on the top of the pieces that you just put on, just for a little bit more secure. Okay, now I'm gonna put on the brim. The other thing I did was I put the buckles on the brims just to make it faster. And this will help stabilize. So I will do a little bit of glue at the top. Push it up from the bottom, push it down from the top. Cute. And now it's just about decorating. So the other thing I did was I put together the turkey. Really is just putting the back on centered, and then the front and his little beak. And the only thing you want to do is make sure the bottom is flat. Now, I'm gonna try a couple things because I haven't really done this yet, but the concept is that these will just sit here. This does fit right in the middle. And then I've got to glue my fruits together real quick so they'll stand up. So let's do a pear. And again, I chose to do these so they would stand up, front and back. You could do them individually and then create little groupings of different fruits to stand up. That would be fine. The pumpkin does not have a flat bottom, I'm noticing. So if I realize this doesn't work, I will change that before you get this. Well, and I also realized I didn't reverse this, so you're just gonna watch me figure this out on the fly. That's fine. I'll fix, that's why I make everything. When you're knee deep in a file, sometimes it's hard to visualize. I try to give you guys everything I possibly can, and sometimes that results in me not seeing every detail till I make it. Okay, And this one I got right. Okay. Let's do a piece of corn. I'm just pushing down to make sure they're aligned. If you put these together and whatever kind of glue you have, let's say doesn't glue fast, and let's say things slide a little bit, and you see bare wood when it's all done, you can use a dark stain or paint. Even black would work if you watered it down a little bit to cover that bare wood so you don't see it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these down. I'm going to add leaves. So I think you can see from there. So I've got lots of leaves and berries that we painted that have dried. And there's no right or wrong. I am going to mix and match where the score marks show, front and back. Because I want to make sure that it's, and I'll put some front and back like this. Maybe I need to purposely do a little rotating so that I'm paying attention to where I'm putting them. And I'll just kind of rotate back and forth. And try to mix and match my colors a little bit. And I want to have things pointing in and out, you know, different directions. And not be front, back, front, back, front, back, front, back all around, because that's too precise as well. So we're just gonna mix things up a little bit. Well, I didn't do the backs of some of those, so we'll leave some. I'll come back, and I'm gonna put this on like this with this up, but that's because I'll come back and paint it. But I'm gonna put the color side against the glue. Let's see, maybe I'll come in with that one. And then go out with this one. Oops. Okay, be patient. Girl, be patient. I'm gonna put a couple berries. That seems to not want to. Do some purple. And then this is another one that I need to paint the leaf. So I'll put the painted side towards the back and I'll paint those. Okay. Put some and then add a couple berries, purple berries. I like the colors for sure. And on this side, I will add this leaf that needs painting. And then I'm gonna add a bundle of berries right here. I think that's good. All right, I'm not gonna paint those leaves like live on here. I will add a photo at the end where you see where I'll fix those, but I am gonna put his little feetsies on here. I think I want that pop of color. Cute. And now Let's see if we can arrange. And all you'll do is arrange this in any way that you want. I put the pumpkin in the back and it stands. I'll show you. So I don't think I'll need to fix that. So he'll stand just fine. Pumpkin. We'll put this up here. Little corn. Little pear. I can't really see it. It's hard to see it from here. And there he is. So stay tuned. I will fix it up, do a little good photo, and then show you the final.